Yeah, boy. All right, I love making my videographer laugh. Welcome back to Cleaning Guns with Joe and Radco. That's what we're doing today. This is always a shenanigans-filled thing. So this is the Cobalt Kinetics Pro Rifle, and this is a dirty, dirty girl. Let me tell you right now, she's been well lubed, but she keeps on getting shot, and it needs to be cleaned. So we're gonna clean through this today. Let me tell you, my hands are already a little messy. They're about to get a lot messier. So stay tuned, all right? First thing we want to do anytime we're cleaning guns, make sure it's unloaded and safe. There's nothing in the magazine well, nothing in the chamber. Oh my God, can you hear how dirty that thing is? We're gonna get it clean here in a second though. Now, to break this thing down, all I'm gonna do is pop out these two takedown pins and remove, maybe, come on, there we go. Remove the upper from the lower. And as you can see, the lower is filled with grime, but we're gonna get to that in a minute. The upper, however, this is the dirty, dirty part. Oh my God. That, you should be able to see. I'm gonna wipe a little bit of this away because it's actually a silver nickel boron bolt, and you can't even see any of the silver. It is filthy. Can you zoom in on that? It is filthy. Oh my God. I probably have about 7,000 or 8,000 rounds on this since the last time I even wiped it down. You can see just by holding the bolt how nasty it is. And the beautiful thing about these rifles is it still runs like a freaking champ. I've had zero issues out of this rifle. And I mean, look at the charging handle, guys. That is straight up disgusting. I'm almost embarrassed, but I'm actually kind of proud. So it's one of those moments in life that you're not sure if you should be embarrassed, but you're kind of not. So just maybe don't tell your mom about it, or do, you know, you do you. So to clean this thing out, good God. This is nasty. I didn't realize it was this bad before I broke this thing down. It is really, really, really gross. This was a clean shirt before we did this. Almost a clean shirt. So let's talk about what I'm using to clean this rifle before I just dive into it without even telling you guys. T-shirt from Independence Range Day. I had some leftovers, so now they become cleaning rags. My favorite products, Radco CLP. This stuff is awesome because it's going to break down all of the carbon buildup on that bolt. It's going to allow us to get that thing sparkly clean again. And it is also what I use for lubricating the rifle, and it penetrates into it. It's awesome stuff. As far as cleaning tools, we have popsicle stick and skewer and a toothbrush. Pretty much all I use. I don't need a whole lot of things. I can throw, you know, a handful of these into my cleaning bag that I travel with, and then a little bottle, you know, like a 4-ounce bottle or even the half-ounce bottle of Radco, and I am all set. That'll take care of 99.9% of your cleaning. You don't have to do a super deep clean every time you shoot your guns. I don't have time for that, so I typically will shoot with the rifles. It's really just when I have time to clean it, because they'll just continue to run as long as I keep on keeping it lubed. But with my pistols, they will start to slow down after about 3,000 to 4,000 rounds. So in that situation, I'll actually just break it down and clean it. So I'm sure you guys have seen some of those other videos. If you haven't, check out the YouTube. I've got videos of cleaning my concealed carry, my Atlas Gunworks. And now we're diving into the Cobalt. So let's talk about what we're doing here first and foremost. This is the dirtiest part of the gun. So we want to get this thing soaking with the CLP as soon as possible before I dive into cleaning everything else. So that's what we're going to do first. I'm going to move this upper out of the way, and we're going to get this thing clean. Now, breaking down a bolt is very simple. Breaking down one of these rifles is very simple. Don't get overwhelmed by it. I'm going to take my skewer, the sharp point of the skewer, and first wipe off some of this bolt because it's nasty. You can wear gloves. That's probably a good idea, is wear gloves for this. But I mean, Jesus, man, like, this is ridiculous. This right here is your firing pin retaining pin, okay? And what we're gonna do is we're gonna pull that out, dump it off the side, and then we're gonna tip the bolt vertical and knock that firing, it's jammed in there. We're gonna knock that firing pin out, or actually pull it out, because it's so freaking gunked up. Again, I love that this gun is going to continue to run, even though I've mistreated this poorly. Don't tell Cobalt. Well, maybe tell them, freaking, I don't care. Just tell them that I ran the hell out of their gun and it runs still. So I love those guys. They treat me well, and they have amazing products. So once we get the firing pin knocked out, let me show you this part, because this is actually kind of important. This is your cam pin, and what we want to do is we want to rotate that cam pin 90 degrees, and there is like a wide side and a narrow side. So we want to make this like running long ways with the bolt. Once we get it running long ways, we're going to pull that out. There's two parts of this rifle that you really want to check regularly. Check the firing pin, because sometimes you'll get the tip to like break off or even bend over, and that will cause light strikes or failure to fire entirely. If you're sitting there, racking live rounds into your gun, you're pulling the trigger, you're hearing a click, and nothing's happening, check the firing pin. I've personally had firing pins have the tip break off. I've had them break in the middle. So just be aware of that. These are metal parts in a machine that need to be maintained, but they fail. So keep that in mind. The cam pin is another failure point that you definitely want to check. I've had these break in half on a number of occasions, so check that. Once we get those out, you're able to pull the bolt out, and this bolt is disgusting. Straight up disgusting. So what we're going to do with this and the bolt carrier group, good Lord, would you look at this? I'm sorry, this is like a squirrel moment. I'm like, I can't believe how nasty this is, but that's why we're cleaning it, guys. That's why we're cleaning it today. So with the bolt and the bolt carrier group, we're just going to take the Radco spray bottle. I'm going to turn this off a stream and turn it onto a spray, and just spray the ever-loving hell out of this. So this soaks in and gets all of this carbon broken down, so that we're able to wipe it away freely without any issues. Now, there is a tool that I really do like for cleaning my AR, and I have no idea where it is right now. Pause for 1 second, because I'm going to go check and see if I can find it.
2 hours later.
All right, well, I'm back, and I couldn't find the tool, so oh well. But basically, it's a little scraper tool that goes inside the bolt carrier and allows me to scrape out all of the built-up carbon that's in there, and then also has like some other spots that you can scrape different things. But that's the main thing I like it for, is really getting inside the bolt carrier group to scrape out all that carbon. So now that we've sprayed this down, we're going to let it sit for a minute and clean the other pieces and parts while the CLP does its job. And oh my, it's just dripping nastiness at this point. I love guns. This is not my favorite part of shooting, though. I will tell you that right now. Firing pin. All I'm going to do is wipe this thing down. As you can see, it was at one time a silver firing pin, and then I turned it black. But now we're going back. Anyway, so we're gonna wipe this thing down, get all that carbon built up off. I'm not too worried about the back here. If you want to really like scrape every ounce of carbon off of there, you're more than welcome to do so. Ain't nobody got time for that. At least I don't. I would prefer just to wipe it down, make it usable, and then move on. Charging handle, same thing. Wipe all this down. Now, one area I do want to pay attention to with the charging handle is two areas, really. The little tabs here, this is where they have the most friction, and if you wipe this down, you can see where they've actually rubbed a little, aluminum on there. It's rubbed the finish off. Wherever you see those bare metal marks, you definitely want to clean those up and make sure that you lube them effectively. So after I get that done, what I'm going to do is use my little popsicle stick here, get a well CLP'd part of the shirt, and just jam this in here and wipe all of the crap that's inside of this down. And as you can see, there's a lot of stuff coming out of here. Look at all that buildup. You can actually see it flaking off of here at this point. And that's the beauty of the CLP, is it really does break that stuff down very quickly so that it comes out without having to struggle or scrape it or anything like that. All I'm using is a t-shirt and a wooden popsicle stick. So it's very simple. Now to get inside of here, I'll take the back side of my skewer and just run that through the hole in the front of the charging handle, and that hole goes over top of the gas tube in your upper receiver. So that will build up a lot of grime, and you want to make sure that's clear. And I mean, you can see just how much grime is built up around here that we're pushing out of there. So we're going to go ahead and wipe that down, and then use my popsicle stick one more time to kind of wipe everything off. Now the charging handle is good to go. Obviously, if you have a broken charging handle, the gun's not going to work, so make sure you get a good charging handle. I like these Radiant Raptors. It's kind of a standard in the gun industry now, is these Raptors. There's some other good ones out there. Strike Industries makes some good ones. Geisley, I mean, there's a lot of them out there, but that Radiant Raptor's kind of become the standard. So let's look at the cam pin. We're going to wipe this thing down real quick, and I want you to pay attention to anywhere you see on this. So you can see with this cam pin, we have the areas where it rubs against the bolt. We have the areas where it builds up carbon, which is right here. You can see this carbon build up. And any of those edges is where you have a potential for breaking. So I've snapped it right in the middle, but this is the most common breaking point. Because you have a hole here, this metal is the thinnest, and it can snap right there around the firing pin. So make sure you check this. If you see any cracking at all, throw it away, replace it with a new one, and just pay attention to that. With the firing pin retaining pin, I just wipe that down. I don't stress it. It should be strong enough to hold that all in place. Now, with the lower can get a lot of crap built up in here. As you can see inside the trigger area, there's a lot of carbon buildup. And this is where using the popsicle stick can really come in handy. But I'm going to go ahead and spray down in here with the CLP and make sure this is just well soaked down before I dive in there with the popsicle stick. Now, keep in mind that as you spray down there, it's going to drip out through the trigger, and it's just going to make a mess. That's why we have the towel down. The towels are great for messes. This is a great time to inspect. So we're making sure that everything in here is not failing. I've actually found trigger springs broken. I've found primers that have gotten underneath the trigger and can cause all sorts of malfunctions. So make sure that you're inspecting this, not just wiping it down and calling it good, but take a second to actually look in there. If you want to, you can pop a flashlight out and really look down and say, oh my God, that's so dirty. It's just disgusting. But look down in there, see what you got in there. Maybe you'll find some quarters, but clean it out really well. That being said, it is not like where most of the gun functions. So as long as you get a pretty decent cleaning down here and you make sure that the trigger itself, the sear and the disconnect, is well lubricated. I like to put a little bit of grease on there sometimes, especially back when I was using CMC triggers a lot. They needed some grease on that sear and disconnect, so pay attention to that. If you have some trigger issues where it's not resetting properly, maybe grease this part right here, okay, where you see that little wear on the metal. That's where that's connecting with the disconnector down here, and that is an important part to keep lubricated. So once we pull that hammer up, I'm able to get down behind here. And again, this usually takes me no more than 10 minutes to clean this rifle, enough for me to be happy with it in a competition or happy with it for work. I don't sit here and deep clean and try to get every single piece of carbon out. I don't have time for that. If you have time to sit there and make it, spotless, go for it. That's on you. I just want to get this to where it's usable and reliable. Those are the only things I care about. If it's not reliable, it's worthless. And if it's not usable, well, then you can't freaking use it. And then what's the point at that point? So this is pretty much done. It's still a little bit grimy down there, but I can see I've gotten most of the stuff out of there. If you wanted to sit here and blast it with, a brake cleaner or something like that to really break down all the carbon, that would blow it out. This breaks down the carbon as well, but it's not, a high pressure spray could get all that stuff out of there if you had something like that. But you don't really need it. As long as you get the majority of it out of there and it's not hanging up. If it was to hang up, then yeah, I would blast that out of there and then lubricate it. Don't leave it dry. So if you use like a brake cleaner or one of those deep carbon cleaners and you spray it in there, don't leave it like that. Make sure you put some CLP in there to make sure it soaks in. This little bottle falls over like crazy. And James, my videographer back here, just dies laughing because I'm constantly trying to set it back up and it doesn't work. All right, now let's look at the upper. The upper is absolutely a filthy mess right now. If you look in here, it literally has piles of carbon in there. Can you see that? Oh yeah, it is just straight up disgusting. It looks like a sludge pit or the bottom of my coffee pot every morning. So what we're gonna do is just spray the shit out of it with this CLP and let it run down the barrel. I like to keep it vertical like this because a lot of that CLP is going to run down the barrel, and then next time I shoot, it's going to blow it all out. But We're gonna let that set while we clean the bolt carrier and the bolt off. Now that we've got this well lubricated in here, it's all sprayed down. We'll clean that here in a second. And right now, we're gonna tackle this bolt. Now, as you can see, there's a lot of hard carbon buildup on the bolt, but after letting it soak for 5 minutes with the CLP, all of this stuff wipes off. I don't know if you can see this. Can you see this, James? Because this is pretty freaking epic, is how effectively this wipes everything off of there. I mean, that thing is damn near clean. There's a little bit of nastiness here still, but overall it's clean. So as you're doing this, pay attention to three different things really on this bolt. Okay, the first thing we want to check is your gas rings. So make sure you have all 3 gas rings. There's 3 little rings here that move independently of the bolt, and we want to check those. If there's any breaks in them, if you're missing one, toss it. You can order new gas rings. You don't need to toss the whole bolt, but you need to toss those gas rings. You can order a new set of gas rings. They're super cheap. The other things that you want to check is the teeth around the bolt here, the top of the bolt, the extractor here, make sure there's no chips on it, and the ejector here. So as long as the ejector little plunger can go in, it's got a very tight spring in there because it's pushing the brass casing out after you've taken the shot, and there's no chips on either the extractor or the bolt lugs. That's a good thing. Also check right here, because again, this is a failure point of the bolt where the hole is in the middle here. That's where the cam pin goes in, just like this. And where that cam pin goes in, obviously the firing pin runs through that. This is a failure point and this is a failure point. So we want to check those for any cracking. I've had bolts snap in half before. That's a catastrophic failure. The gun is done. You cannot fire another round out of that until you replace the whole bolt. So keep that in mind. Check for any cracking there. Typically it's not going to happen, but I have seen it as soon as like 5,000 rounds through a rifle. I had a student once that came out and he had less than 5,000 rounds to the rifle and his bolt snapped in half. It's probably a faulty bolt. It should not be the case. This bolt right here has probably 40,000 rounds on it and it's good to go. So I've never changed the gas rings on it. I think maybe you're supposed to before that. I don't know. I shoot it until it stops. Maybe not hit me up for all the maintenance advice. Find somebody else who can do the maintenance for you or give you good advice on maintenance. I shoot things until they stop shooting and clean them when they need to be cleaned, or sometimes after they need to be cleaned. Like this one is definitely beyond the clean, but it still works. So I'm not even mad about it. It still is running. So, all right, now the bolt, I told you the silver nickel boron. You didn't believe me because it was so nasty, but let's wipe this thing down real quick. Now that the CLP's had a little bit of time to soak in there, I'm gonna show you a little magic transformation. Holy crap, you can start to see the silver nickel boron coming through. With this, it may take a little bit of scrubbing because it's so built up and it's actually soaked into the metal itself. But as you can see, it doesn't take a lot to get at least the surface clean. So at this point, you can see here, my finger's coming off of that clean. If I find a clean part of the shirt, like right here, this is a clean part of the shirt. I'm rubbing that and it's coming off clean. So the discoloration to the silver nickel boron, if I put this into a sonic cleaner, we would get all of that stripped off and that's fine. I don't have a sonic cleaner. I kind of want to get one. I've been meaning to get one. I just keep on forgetting to. So this is my reminder to get a sonic cleaner. When I watch this video after James has edited it, I'll be like, oh yeah, I gotta get a sonic cleaner. But realistically, this is another opportunity for the popsicle stick. Run this popsicle stick up into this wet shirt and kind of scrape this out. I prefer to use that scraper tool that I mentioned earlier. I'll see if I can find that later on. I get all up in here too, and you can see how much carbon is just flaking off of this, which is great because it's super easy. And then just wipe everything down with a t-shirt. Make sure you got most of this buildup off. I will also wipe inside here. Granted, there's nothing that's rubbing inside of there, but I don't want to have that build up too much. It's not a huge deal, but it's just something I do. And then we take this, clean the grooves out, make sure everything's clean and lubricated and all ready to rock and roll. Yeah, that's about clean for me. There's a little bit of nastiness in here, so a little stubborn carbon right here in this area. Use that toothbrush to kind of get in there a little bit. Oh yeah. And now that we've done that, man, look at that. It's coming off of there really effectively. I'm going to give James his toothbrush back at the end of this episode so he can brush his teeth tonight. But that looks pretty good to me. We're going to go ahead and re-lube that and put it back together after we clean the upper. Now, the upper, besides the bolt, is the most filthy. I think it actually might be more filthy than the bolt. We sprayed this already. So check this out. That's disgusting. It looks like oil sludge from the oil fields of Alaska or something. I don't know. There's a show about that somewhere. But clean this thing out. I like to use my popsicle stick, grab the shirt, wipe that all the way down into here, and really focus on up here by the gas tube, and then also in this little nook here. So I go in from the ejection port and hit the little nook inside of there where the cam pin goes and get all of that grime out of there. And it is just disgusting. Straight up nasty. I don't know why are you guys that are watching this video right now, drop a comment. I'm curious. Do you guys also like to watch pimple popping videos? Because this is kind of how I feel right now. It's just like, this is gross. I know it's important. I know I should do this more often. You should probably do this with your guns more often, but it's disgusting. Like, do you guys also like to watch pimple popping videos? I don't. I'm not a huge fan of that. I think it's gross, but it has to be done, I guess. All right, so off of that subject, finish clean this thing out. I do have a large bore brush here. Now, this is for shotguns typically and cleans the chamber of the shotguns, but I really like this brush for cleaning out the upper, because as you can see, running this down the upper, it fits perfectly. So what I like to do is I'll take my t-shirt, I'll find a good thin spot like this, and I'll run this right down the upper receiver, and that gets a lot of this grime out really effectively. That's cleaned the whole back of the upper receiver, and now the only part that I really have to focus on is up near the chamber. And you can get the chamber brushes and all of that stuff. I have those as well, and when I do my like twice a year, once to twice a year deep cleaning, I'll hit the chamber brushes and even get like dental picks and get in there. But be careful with dental picks, because that can really actually mar the metal inside, because these are typically aluminum receivers, so you don't want to get in there with a steel pick and start scraping at the metal. Only focus on the carbon. So this popsicle stick and a t-shirt does 99% of everything, and the once or twice a year that I deep clean these, that's the only time I'm going to break out the picks and the chamber brushes. All right, so I've got the upper pretty well cleaned out. Cleaned it up for my standards, which is frankly not that clean, but it's definitely going to be much more smooth at this point. So now let's go ahead and reassemble this, and I want to give you a breakdown on how exactly I do this. The bolt's important. I like to put just a little bit of lube on the bolt, not much, and just wipe it on this. And a lot of people don't lube the bolt at all, but I think that having a little bit of lube on here is a good thing. From here, that goes right into the bolt carrier. And what I want you to pay attention to here is the orientation of your extractor and your ejector. You want that extractor facing, when it's inside the gun, facing the ejection port, because it's really important. I have a friend who somehow managed, now this is not supposed to be doable, but he somehow managed to turn this backwards. And what happens when you turn the extractor backwards into the receiver? Well, the shells go back into the gun instead of out of the gun. And needless to say, that was a hilarious video of him shooting 3-gun, getting one shot off, and sitting there with a knife, screaming at his gun the rest of the time, trying to dig the shells out. I love you, Ben. Sorry for throwing you under the bus like that, buddy. No names shall be mentioned except for Ben's. So anyway, a little bit of lube on that bolt. Make sure it's facing the right way to eject that spent brass. And then we're going to go ahead and put in the cam pin. This I like to lube liberally. Okay, I want to make sure that this thing has lots of lube, because there's a lot of rotation on this. That rotation is causing wear on the pin itself. So we want to make sure that's well lubricated. We're going to put that straight down in here. Remember, we want that oriented facing along the path of the bolt. Then we'll rotate that around 90 degrees, and we're going to pull the bolt forward. At this point, we're going to put the firing pin in. I don't put lube on the bolt. I will wipe it down with my fingers, because they're already got a little bit of CLP on there. Drop that in here, push it down so that it's flush with the back of the bolt carrier, and then we're going to put your bolt or a firing pin retaining pin in just like that. Okay, now this is back to a full bolt carrier group and ready to go back into the gun. The next part is the charging handle. I'll put a little bit of lube on any of the wear spots that you see. So any place where you see bare metal, I'll put a little bit on there, wipe it around. You can see a little bit on the top here. So we want just a thin coat of CLP all over this, not to where it's like dripping, but just a little bit. This now goes into your upper, right in the big hole here. Push it down against the top and then let it slide into the slots that are designed for the charging handle. Put that in a little bit. From here, I'm going to go ahead and wipe down this entire bolt carrier group, especially focusing on the bottom here and the top up here. These 4 spots, let me show you this. Right here, right here, right here, and right here are the primary areas where you get wear on the bolt carrier grip. And I'll also put a little bit on here because this rides over top of the trigger and you do get a little bit of wear on that. So we're gonna put a dot on the bottom, a dot on each one of these rail sections, and then wipe that around. I don't sit here and I don't want my bolt dripping. Some people like that. I don't like to have a ton of lubrication on here, a ton of CLP, because what happens is that's going to splatter out of the gun as you're shooting. It's going to splatter on your glasses, it's going to splatter on your optics. I'm not a huge fan. Now, as we go to put this bolt back into the gun, it is important to pull that bolt forward out of the bolt carrier group, and then we lay this in just like so, and then everything goes in like this. From here, it's as simple as flipping this back over, setting it on top of here, and closing your pins. Woo, so much better. Still a little dirty. Don't look at the details. She'll run, trust me. She's run up to this point, so that's saying a lot. But Cobalt Kinetics Pro Series rifle is clean and ready to go. That is what I do for my rifles for daily maintenance, or let's be honest, it wasn't daily maintenance. It's been like quarterly maintenance, maybe. It's probably got 10,000 rounds on this rifle since I cleaned it last, but she's running well. And now she's ready for another 10,000 rounds. So I hope you guys enjoyed that. Be sure to check out Radco CLP for all of your cleaning needs. We're about to drop some really cool cleaning kits that are going to help you with all of your guns. And I'm also going to be giving some of this stuff away on my Instagram. So if you have any questions, drop a comment down below, hit that like and subscribe button. If you want to check out the giveaways on Instagram, head over there. Other than that, I think we're done for the day. Thank you guys for tuning in, and I'll catch you next time. All right, that was a mess, but thanks for letting me borrow your toothbrush, James.